Hi, everyone. My name's Mike, and this is Practical Jobs to be Done. And today, this is kind of a unique beginning point of my podcast journey because I'm using Substack podcast capabilities, which allows me to upload an audio version of my podcast. It also allows me to upload a video portion of my podcast and also lets me write a blog post with it. So, all three of those things are going to happen. And so, if you're listening to this on a podcast, outlet and you feel like you're not seeing what I'm talking about, I urge you to get back to or come back to jobstobedone.substack.com, where you can find this episode along with the visuals and the written blog post as well. So let's carry on. Okay, welcome back to Practical Jobs to be Done. What I'm going to do today is walk you through my entire workflow for creating a jobs to be done value model. Just as a brief summary, the difference between the different schools of jobs to be done are that primarily there's one school that does a handful of interviews, switch interviews that are really focused on people during the purchase process, as far as I know. If you've got a different opinion, you can leave a comment down below. And the result of those interviews is a bunch of job statements that have metric language built into them. It's an assumption that somebody, based on a handful of interviews, that everybody wants to accomplish something in these job story statements. I know I'm not being friendly to that school of thought, but setting that aside, what we're trying to do here is fundamentally different. There's just no real correlation between the two approaches, although the approach that I use, which is based on loosely based on outcome-driven innovation, it can accomplish the same things. We can study all of the consumption journeys, the buying process, the installation process, the maintenance, whatever it might be, to understand how to optimize those services. What it does that the other school doesn't do is actually provide inputs into the product innovation process itself, and that could be it actually could be a product or a service, which is the opposite side of the journey. So the service is supporting those journeys. It's the company side of the equation. And we can also take a look at business models. Now, I don't think I would trust somebody who's standing in line at a store to purchase something to help me figure out what the next business model is. Just saying. So that's the fundamental difference. We're not outputting insights and we're not outputting anything that are hard facts as far as what action you should take. What we're trying to do is build a model, a framework that's got specific components that we use to then go out and measure the ability to get that job done in the market with statistically appropriate sample sizes. So that's the goal. If your goal is to just get insights in 2 weeks and then go do something, then this method's probably not for you. Even though we're trying to make it faster, we're going to be very competitive with any type of qualitative research. But that's not what the goal is. The goal is to put some structure to this. It's based on systems thinking. Okay. It's not based on personalities and theater and performance of individuals. It's based on the system. So anybody can do it because the system really owns this. So what I wanted to do today is walk you through exactly how I build these models today. This will be automated. We will be working on not only automating this, but also the next phase, which is getting surveys into the field, and then the next phase, which is pulling the data out and building data models and then analyzing it. All of that's coming, folks. Trust me, and it's coming faster than you. If you're a practitioner, then you probably want to believe. So today I thought I would do a I guess it's a consumption chain job. It's a journey. All right. And the job that I thought I would look at is making a technology purchase selection in a physical store, which is the context. So let's just start off. Let me start off. I'm going to go in here and create a new catalog. And this is the way I do it. I store all of my data in a Notion database, and I do that because most of it's textual. I don't want to create special databases for it. If it needs to get somewhere else, I'll get it there later. But right now, this makes for a very easy way to search for data, to organize the data, and just keep track. It's just easier to work with. So that's the way I do it. You might use another product. There's different platforms out there. Microsoft Loop might be an interesting one at some point. But I'm just gonna come in here and give it a name. This is actually the job statement. So selection, decision, basically what we're doing is we're trying to decide what to buy. Okay. I'm not interested in the purchase process, the process of exchanging funds for a product. I'm more interested in making sure that the end user, in this case, is a consumer, is that we're capturing their journey through the decision process in a store. And being in that store, the store has to afford them the information that they need to make that decision. So let's see, let's get the context here. In a physical store. And I just do this I'm going to probably get rid of most of these fields. I just do that to keep track of it. So for those of you who have seen these catalogs before, I basically break out a lot of the standard components for a jobs to be done model. I've added a few, and we'll go through those as well. I will be probably adding more because ultimately automating all of this gives us so much more flexibility to capture information. We don't have to go out and do interviews, so there's no real expense to it, and we don't have to spend the time doing it either. It also lets us pivot very quickly if we need to. So I think I've already kind of stated that before. But right now, what we're going to do is focus on we've got this core job, right? Making a technology purchase selection. But instead of starting with creating a job map, what I'd like to do is come in and generate some contexts. And the reason I do that is because context is critical. So there's a couple of ways that I use this. And I'm not the only one that uses this. I'm just the only one that's generating these lists up front. Because I think what happens in the human process is that all of the possible contexts get obscured by whatever the final decision is. So I want to make sure that we're really transparent and we've got a database of all these. So if we need to go back later and address them, we've got it. It's not hidden away somewhere deep in somebody's notes. Okay, so the way I do this is pretty simple. I come into my little nifty database and I copy my prompt. And then I'm going to come over into ChatGPT and I'm going to, let's make sure we're on the right version. I'm going to come in here and enter in an end user. The job is making a technology purchase decision. And I'm going to, since I don't have a context. Yeah, so I'm looking for contexts other than in a physical store. That is kind of a clarify, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm going to add that onto the end of the job statement. In a physical store, and this is obviously different from doing it online or doing it on an app on your phone, wherever you might go to do that. This is not an omni-channel study. So I'm going to ask it to generate 20 contexts. All right, so let's see what it does. Now, this is very interesting. Did you think about anything like this when I mentioned contexts? So the context I could walk into the store and I could be trying to, assess what's available versus my budget, or just to find out what are the latest technology trends, and that could be in a specific area, like maybe smartphones or cameras. I may have already done some research online, and I'm just coming in to compare prices in the store and how quickly I can get something. Is it in stock? Things like that. So a lot of different things that we can consider with our stakeholder, whoever is sponsoring this study. Now, there are a couple of ways we can use this data. One is we can pick, maybe a handful of them that we think are important, and just run a universal map, a high level map for the job, and then just capture, hey, hey, respondent, when you came into the store, were you doing an in-store product comparison? Were you seeking expert advice? Things like that. That way, when we start looking at the needs, the prioritization of needs, the success metrics, we can use this data to potentially help describe the segment. The other way to do this is we can actually feed this into the job itself, into the job statement itself as a context, and have it generate a map that is specific to that context. And that will be a different map than you would get at the universal level. And if you were to generate a map for each of these, you would see quickly that they're all going to be very different, and they're going to have different success metrics as well. So this is the reason I do this first is because this is a conversation that you need to have either with yourself as a researcher, or with your sponsor, because this is kind of a critical point to make that decision. So what I do is I just come in here, and since I was able to make sure it didn't put any chatty messages on the front or back, I can just hit the copy button, which is always a challenge when you get chatty message prompts. So I just put it in here. I turn these into toggle lists. And the reason I do that is because, as you can see here, I also generate situations for each of these contexts, just in case. But let me show you what I'll get to situations in a minute. But that's the reason I do it, and we'll get back to these at that point. All right, now that we've got our context generated, there are two pathways. So the first one's going to be generating a universal map, and then the second one will be coming back here, and we'll take a look at one of the contexts. So I'm going to come back into my prompt wiki here and grab a prompt, and we're going to copy that long prompt and come back over into chatgpt. Let me get my Windows reset here for you. All right. And I'm going to start a new chat. All right. So the job was making technology purchase decision in a physical store. And you'll see why I'm not putting it in the context button when we get back and plug a context in. That could be in a physical store. That could be a context. We'll get the exact same result because I basically append these when I do the prompt. So the end user is a consumer. We're not going to enter an endpoint or start point, but as I meant, overrides so that you can make your outputs just as good as the experts who never seem to follow the rules. So we're just going to follow the rules and use the 8 or 9 phases of a job map. I'm going to select low fidelity. So my fidelity settings are essentially low is 10 to 12 steps. Medium is 13 to 14 or 15, something like that. And then the high fidelity is whatever the remainder is, up to 18. We could go higher. These are just the instructions I decided to give it. It's arbitrary, just like the human experts are. So we're just going to hit enter and see what we get. So this is essentially the map. Identify the needs, research the options, seek recommendations, visit retail stores, evaluate product in store, compare prices. We could use that start point to begin this process at the store. But as you recall from some of the context, there was one in there where they're comparing to, online research. So we're not going to do that here, but you could do that. And what the Fidelity will do is give you an output between that starting point and the logical ending point, or an ending point that you decide to put in. So you could have it start in the store, and then you could have it finish at decide on the purchase, for example, and it'll give you more fidelity, or it'll give you more, the scope will be tighter, and you'll have an appropriate level of fidelity within that scope. That makes sense. So you do have some control over this. I'm just showing you my workflow. Again, these things are decisions you'll have to make during your work or your project. What is it that you need to do to answer your research questions, and then go from there. So we're just going to take these steps, come over, and I am going to come into the core job map area, and I stub out the universal toggle. I'm going to actually put in a toggle for one of the contexts. So we're just going to paste the job map in there, and I'm going to set it to toggle mode so that I can pop the success metrics in there when we get to that point. So there's the universal map. Now we'll come back and we'll take a look at the difference in just a moment. But before we do that, let's come in here and select the context that maybe we would expect to be a different job map. So let's see. Well, let's just do the one that's probably fairly common. I think it's more common to go into the store and then check online prices on your phone. But so we're going to basically do the exact same thing we just did here, except what I'm going to do, and this is one of the tricks of this, is that I've got variables. So I'm just going to update the one variable, context, and let the rest of them persist in memory. So the context we selected was what? Oops, I just pasted it so I can. And I'm just going to add something to connect it better. In order to, something like that. So we'll have making a technology purchase decision in a physical store in order to compare online and store prices. Does that make sense? So I didn't generate them in the format that you're going to have to do a little fiddling there, but this fiddling is just part of the process right now, because that's not a priority to fix for me, but you will have to fiddle just a little bit. So just think about it when you go back through these prompts and look at how your variables will play out in the prompt. You want to word it properly. It does a decent job if you don't, but it's, I guess, I wouldn't want to take that risk on a regular basis, so I don't. So let's see what we're doing here. See, it's already put some context to the research, but it's similar, but it's very similar, but it's more specific, if you see what I mean. And if we ran a different one, you might actually see steps that you don't see in the universal or this one. These two are very similar, just by their nature, because the original one did talk about, I think it talked about comparing the prices. But anyway, let's actually run another one just for fun. You've got time, right? So let's see, product demos and testing. Let's try this one. So we will come in here and do context, and I'll go with regard to product demos and testing. While I'm doing that, you can watch that. And the next one will be product demos and testing. So obviously this map is different. Identify key features, Some of these are going to be similar. Test product in store, that's a new one. So there's definitely a difference here. So I hope you see that. So just think about this: when we get to the point where we're generating success metrics, we're gonna, those net new or different steps are gonna have different success metrics as well. So what was the first one? Compare online and in-store prices. All right. So we've got 3 to look at here. I think you can see the differences. This is something that you'll be able to experiment with because you won't have to go out and do customer interviews. You'll just plug these into ChatGPT 4.0 Pro and run anything you want and mess around with it until you get what you're looking for. It's that simple. All right, so now that we've done that, we can go on to generating success metrics. I will generate a set for the universal job, and then I will consider doing it for one of these other jobs just so we can take a look at some of the differences. Since this is the core part of the modeling, I think it's important that we do that. Then we'll get into the situations and the related jobs and all that stuff. So sit back. This is going to be a long one. So what I'm going to do is pick up the prompt. So we can do the ODI version, or we can do what I call the no version. I'm going to do ODI because most of you are familiar with that. But the no version, I call it the KNOW version, not because it always puts out no at the front. It's because it uses different a different structure, and occasionally it puts out no. It was initially instructed to do that. Now it outputs other types of verbs, but outcome oriented verbs. I don't want it to. The whole point of that is to get away from activity focused type things like you're doing something and get more into the or using verbs that sound like that. I want them to sound like outcomes. That's kind of surprising, isn't it? So I'm going to do this. Remind me to blur all that out. You guys shouldn't be seeing that. So anyway, I am going to come in here and create a new chat. Paste this in. It's a little redundant doing this, typing this stuff over and over again, but you'll see in a minute that I don't have to do that when I'm generating metrics. I just have to update one variable. So consumer making a technology purchase decision in a physical store. No context for now. The step is going to be, first one, identify needs. I'm going to output 20 as I normally do, and that is primarily to get coverage. If you don't feel like you're getting coverage, or if you're doing some checking against your live interviews and you got something that didn't come up here, generate a few more and see if it pops in. And also think very, very long and hard about whether that outcome actually belongs in a different step, the one that you collected. Quite often that's the case. You can use the test fit structure that's built into this and that I've written about in my blog in order to determine that. So just keep that in mind. So let's output 20 statements. Yeah, definitely going to have to blur that out. I know people that want to know. It's a long prompt. This might be a really good time to address my terms of service. If you buy this masterclass, if you're a direct competitor of mine and you haven't contacted me to get a waiver, don't do it. Don't buy it. Because if I find out that you're using it to commercialize in a consulting fashion or to build it into a product, like a tool, I will come after you because I worked long and hard on this. But if you come and talk to me, we might work something out, a licensing agreement, or maybe I'll just be a nice guy. It depends. But this is obviously highly sought after by certain individuals, and I am watching. Some have already tried. So identify needs. So let's just take a look at a few of these and then I'll go generate the rest of them. I'll probably speed through that so you don't have to watch. But minimize the time it takes to identify specific technology features that meet personal requirements. Minimize the time it takes to recognize compatibility needs with existing devices or services. You can look through these. Let me just caution you all. What you're not trying to do here, you're not trying to come up with ideas. You're not trying to specify solutions. You're not trying to identify pain points with current features. What you're trying to do, you're trying to develop a set of success metrics, and that is measures of success related to this step. Okay, what are the possible ways we could measure success? No two people are going to answer these questions the same way. How important is this to you? As you try to identify needs, how difficult is it for you to accomplish that, given your current solution? That's what we're asking, those types of questions. We're not trying to find pain points here. So if that's what your goal is, and I know that's the goal of switch interviews, it's not the goal of this. So keep that in mind. There's more to do after qualitative research in this version of Jobs to be Done. There's not much else to do in the other version. So we're going to go in here and generate a couple of more of these research options. I'm not going to make you sit here, go through the whole model, because it'll literally take me a while to do this. And I will probably run into a governor limit on ChatGPT, my 3-hour limit. So as you can see, there's a lot of steps, and then I'm doing different versions of it. It's just gonna, as you're building up from the bottom, it starts to add up your message limits, your tokens, however they measure it. So we'll do these two, and then I'll go to the other one just so you can see what that looks like. We'll pick a step that's different. I would say that I do have a kind of a control mechanism to try to aggregate up these metrics. If you pick like a small number like 5 or 7, I just haven't tested it yet to see, is it really getting us the coverage that we're looking for? I don't know that it is, so I would just go with the larger number. It's no effort on your part. You just plug in 20 instead of 10. It's like that simple. Okay, so let's take a look at the product demos and testing one. So test product in store, that is a different one. So what we're going to do, since I haven't run a lot of these yet, the memory's probably still okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add context. So making a technology purchase decision in a physical store while testing a product in store. Yeah, I know, a little clumsy, but I'm sorry. That's not the context. I'm going to start over, folks. I wasn't paying attention. The context is by demos and testing. Something like that is the context. The step is going to be test product in store. Okay, let's see what we got. Minimize the time it takes to identify key functionalities to test during in-store demos. So this is something that you would want to do before you went to the store. What am I going to test? Minimize the time it takes to locate products available for hands-on testing in the store. That might be in store. That might be, maybe you can find that out before you go in. Minimize the time it takes to assess the user experience and interface of the product. So these are all, there's nothing wrong here. So anybody that tells you that it should only be 7 metrics is fooling you. Scope will determine that. So you need to be very clear on what your scope is. So we're just going to come in here and you'll see all my anal retentive characteristics. I'm going to toggle this. Okay, so we did that. So y'all see what's going on here? The context does matter. So if your scope really is around that context, that's what you want to study. then you need to add that in and map it out that way so that you're focused in on that particular context. Otherwise, just do the universal approach, and then just, as people respond to your survey, you can ask them what context they were in and give them a set of options. You've got 20 of them. All right. So the next thing that I do is to generate, I'm calling them situations, situational factors, complexity factors, name it what you will. The entire point of this is to understand what are the conditions under which the end user was performing this job. All right. They could be different. I guess I use this example a lot, like in the painting industry. Even if you're indoors painting a room, the humidity outside will determine how long that a coat of paint will take to dry, which is critical if you're trying to get done on a deadline. So you want to understand those things. So it could be, the situation could be humidity level, and it could be low or high. You see what I'm saying? So if you do that on a 5-point scale, you're going to see exactly how this works in just a moment. So I'm going to go back here and grab my situation prompt. And this is another one that's pretty instructive as far as format. I've done just so you know, the customer success metrics. I do have a version where it outputs in the format that I learned as far as putting them into a survey. So it outputs it in a table structure with importance and satisfaction. It covers the whole thing. But you know what? Most end user focused survey tools, and that's what I'm going to guess most of you are using, they don't allow you to do stuff like that. So why bother? So I'm just going to give you the list. So the prompt is the prompt. Always output in Markdown. Always. I'm sorry that I got this big screen with that's split, but I don't like hopping between windows and resharing it. It's just, I find it difficult to do. So I'm not even sure I know how to do it. We got a consumer who's making a technology purchase decision in a physical store. I'm leaving that blank again because I'm going to show you how I do this for the contexts. And we're going to ask for 20. That's just common. You can test for more of that in a survey or fewer than that. It's up to you. Well, ain't that special? It's actually following my instructions to the T. It normally will output it visually, which is still stored as markdowns when I paste it in, but you'll see the visual version of this when I paste it into Notion. All right. The nice thing about these windows is you can just come in there and copy that. So you'll see when I paste it into Notion, it gives you a visual. This is essentially how you would want it to look in the survey. So if you're passing along survey instructions to somebody, having a visualization of what you're looking for makes sense. So complexity, availability of desired product, unavailable, fully stocked, knowledge level of store staff, uninformed, expert. So these are things that you're going to want to capture during your survey. Okay. And that will help you when you begin doing your needs-based, or when you're done with your needs-based segmentation. You're going to use information like this to help understand that segment. Are there correlations that are common across the segments? And you can use contexts too if you are doing more of a universal map. And the beauty is that with AI, you can actually plop a lot of those outputs into ChatGPT or whatever, and it will help analyze it for you. It does an amazing job, so that you don't have to spot those things on your own. So that's what that looks like. Nice. I mean, I think it does a great job. This reminds me a lot of the types of outputs or the types of complexity factors I would see when I was at Stratogen. So the next the next piece of the puzzle is, well, what if we want to do this for different contexts? Is there a difference? So I'm going to take this in-store comparison. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to update the context. So let's see. Again, I'm going to have to rephrase this. I don't have to. We'll do a little test here. Let's see how it does without me rephrasing this. Try to center this so maybe we don't need to worry about, I know there's been times when I haven't bothered to rephrase it. I just plopped it in there. So hopefully we won't need to do that. It's really quite good. Again, this is a large language model. It understands language. Okay, so there's one. Let's seeking expert advice. So we're just going to update the context. Everything else is the same. So again, if you're doing a survey where you have contextualized the job map and the success metrics, the situation that you want to include is going to be the one you generate here, not the universal one. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's why I do these, just so that I've got them. So we're looking at seeking expert advice, availability of experts for consultation, none available, readily available. Makes sense? Alignment of advice with consumer needs, misaligned, perfectly aligned. So these are all things that would be relevant in the context of seeking professional advice or expert advice. So that's you can just keep going down, just keep updating the context, and you can fill all these out in about 5 minutes. I'm not going to do that because we have more to see. Okay, so we've covered the core job, situations, contexts. I also do use cases. I'm not sure I've got that one zeroed in quite yet. I didn't include that in the masterclass. There's a reason for that. And anybody that's, in the design space might appreciate the fact that we want to focus on prioritized use cases as well. So I'm still working on that a little bit, but we'll move on to related jobs. I'm going to start a new chat, go grab the related jobs prompt, and related jobs. And again, I stopped putting these in code blocks. They're a lot easier to copy, but they're not necessarily as easy to read. So, what are related jobs? There are people that get confused by this, and I understand. When we're talking about a core job, that could be something like maintaining lifelong health. Okay. Maintaining lifelong health is the job. That's right there at the during part of this, but there's things that we need to do before the core job. There are other jobs we might be getting done during the execution of that core job, and there are things that we may need to do after execution. Of course, if it's maintaining lifelong health, there's probably not a lot you can except move some dirt around. So you get what I'm saying. It's like think about a meeting as conduct a meeting or hold a meeting to make a decision. There are things you need to do before the meeting, right? Jobs that you're not doing during the meeting. You're doing them before. You're creating an agenda. You're organizing resources. You're getting people, getting it on their calendar, whatever. Then there's during the meeting, you're conducting the meeting. There's a job map there, right? But there are other jobs that might be getting done at the same time. Now, you may be conducting the meeting, but you also may be the note taker. So one of your other jobs might be taking notes during the meeting. That could be a step in the meeting, but it's probably something that goes throughout, spans the meeting from beginning to end. So I would look at that as a related job that's being done during the meeting, whether it's the same job executor or somebody else. And then there's things you need to do afterwards. You might have action items and other follow-ups that you need to take care of, and possibly even rescheduling the next meeting. Or scheduling that next follow-up meeting. So I hope that makes sense. sometimes in the consumption space, we tend to see those jobs look like other consumption jobs, or even the steps in our consumption job. And so don't let that confuse you too much. Everything's actually a consumption job when you think about it. But we're just going to type in the same user consumer. The job is going to be maintaining, I'm sorry, what is it? Making a technology. I should have just put this in memory, pasted it in a physical store. So I'm kind of expecting to see maybe doing some research before this going into the store. We're just doing this on the universal job. Okay, so we'll see how it plays out. I was right. So those make sense, right? Those are things that you might do before you go into the store. So you got a budget in mind, specific needs, researching other in the products, planning the store visit, and then the things you do while you're in the store. And then if you make a purchase, reviewing the purchase, reading user manuals, that sort of thing. I might even suggest that making the purchase could be an after you've made the decision, but we'd have to go and investigate why that isn't there. So I just come in here and paste these in. And I am going to toggle these, and I'll show you why. If anybody's been following my catalog, you know why. And the why is because while in a typical jobs to be done survey, what we're going to do with these related jobs is we're going to put these in the survey as statements, and we're going to ask the respondents to rate the job, not a job map, not outcomes, just the job itself. Is that an important job for you? How difficult is it for you to get that job done? That way, if we find that the research says, this job's pretty well satisfied, these are additional growth paths that you can consider. If you find jobs that are important where people are struggling, that's the next place for you to start looking. So that's why we do that. Now, one of the things that I've been doing in the catalog is I'm trying to make a catalog or a framework that we can use in a variety of ways. Okay. Not just the one way that some people want you to use it. Maybe you want to pull off a quick survey related to one of these jobs, and you don't want to do a whole big job map. You just want to test 15 things. You can, if you followed my ideals thing, you could test ideals, or you can just generate some metrics. So I do have a prompt that's not in the course, but you can probably figure out how to modify the one that's there to do this. So I come in and do this job level success metrics thing. And this, again, it's not in the course. I haven't been using it lately, so I'm not sure how optimized this is going to be. But what I'll do is just run it to show you how you can use it. Consumer, the job, and sometimes I output 100 of these. Sometimes I do 50. Let's do 15. Let's just say I want to generate 15 for each of those. And just in case I want to go a little bit deeper in the main survey, or if I want to pop off a quick and dirty small survey. So we'll just do it for that. I'm going to stop that because I don't recall if I put the step in. I don't know if I used the correct prompt. Hold on. Oh, I did not use the correct prompt. This is the prompt I use for generating like 150 or 100 success metrics just for the job without any steps. But there's, here it is. Success metrics related job. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so let's just cut and paste. Consumer related job. Okay, so that's what we want to do. Researching product options. And again, capitalization does not seem to be important. So I put in 10 to 15. I'm just going to tell it to do 15. So we got the related job in there, the core job, and it's going to basically generate some metrics. And this one is using my original no version. So now you guys see what that looks like. I've adapted that a little bit. And again, I haven't been using this prompt a lot lately, so I totally forgot that I had done that, but it gets a little annoying. It's almost like minimize the time it takes to know gets a little annoying, but it is an outcome. You just want to know this. You don't want to minimize the time. You just want to know. That's pretty much know and avoid, which are the replacements. So it's generating too many because I only asked it. Oh, I did 115. Sorry about that. So we'll just cancel that. I meant to say 15. But so that's what that does. And you can, I may add this into the course. I need to make some changes so that maybe I'll give you options as to which type you want, but I may add that in. Okay, so anyways, now you kind of see, I'm going to take the first 15. Just pop it in here. Toggle. No. That way we know for sure. We couldn't tell by the actual statements. All right, so that's that. So you got the related jobs. You can generate metrics for them if you want. If you want to modify that prompt yourself, it's really simple. You just need to add a statement in there that feeds the address or the related job into the prompt, but I'll probably add that into the masterclass. So use cases, we're not doing related jobs, done. Emotional jobs. So we've got two types of emotional jobs, I guess. We used to break it out as like personal and social, but we'll just call it emotional and social. So these are pretty simple prompts. Frankly, didn't have to do a lot of tweaking with them. So we'll just do emotional jobs. So you kind of see an emotional job is basically how you want to feel or avoid feeling. Okay. So the way this outputs today is it's going to output in a list and then it's going to output in survey format so you can see how they're constructed for the survey. Making a technology purchase decision in a physical store. I'm going to guess that some of the emotional stuff would be different in a physical store versus online where you're more anonymous, but I'm not going to test that for you. You guys can test that. You got to sign up for the course. You can test it against the corpus of human knowledge that is the large language model of openai, as opposed to the 6 to 10 random people that your research vendor selects for you to ask questions of, where you get their limited knowledge, their bias, and your bias. Okay, so that's kind of how it looks. It outputs, how you want to feel, desired emotions, while you're doing the job. This isn't about your aspirations or how you want to be, super important, but it's really in the context of the core job of making that technology selection. So you want to avoid feeling overwhelmed, etc. So anyway, I just output it here for you so you can see how we would ask that. Again, I'm just using a 3-point scale. You can use a 5-point scale if you want to, but I would urge you, because I've seen why this is important, urge you to use a neutral statement in the middle of your scale as opposed to using the word important as your middle point. Just not a good thing. So anyways, that's what it looks like. So we're just going to copy it and paste it, and I'll come over here and plop it in, and there you go. I won't do the social jobs. Same thing. It's same format output. The only difference is that a social job is how you want to be perceived or avoid being perceived. Financial metrics. So the important thing to consider here is whether the end user, in your case of this core job, also makes the purchase decision. In a B2B scenario, it's often quite unlikely, especially in high ticket items, that they'll be making the decision. That will usually go to some other group like procurement or a committee or maybe an executive a level or two above you to get final approval. And the questions that you ask are going to be similar, because it's really about trying to reduce cost along, the actual price maybe, which is what everybody seems to compete on. But we also have other factors to consider that impact lifetime cost of ownership, things like that. You can see up here I generated a version that is kind of a different version, a new version. But let me generate one that's more along the lines of the traditional outputs that we expect. Okay, cutting and pasting. Making a technology purchase decision in a physical store. We're going to go for 20 of them. I'm going to set the temperature to 0.1. Let's see what we get. So things that you might think about beyond just the price of the thing, the cost of extended warranties, of software updates, protective cases, transferring data from an old device to a new device, other ergonomic accessories, screen replacements. It's trying to think about what you might purchase in a technology store, I guess. So that's kind of what they look like. So these are considerations that you want to understand as well. And we just come in here and plop them down. Now they're ready to be, copied and pasted into your survey. The ideal and root cause. Well, you guys have all seen this because it was in my waiting list course. So anybody that got in there got those for free. Let's just take a look at what that looks like. Again, these are, you can do with them what you will, okay? Because I've obviously been doing some experiments here. You can do whatever you want with them. I've got my own ideas about it, but at a minimum, you can use these as a replacement almost for a job map, and just again, another quick and dirty to find out. And we'll see what this looks like so you can understand it. But they're almost like the high end of a maturity model of a capability. So it's like it's a capability that is expressed in the most mature way. So you don't have 5 options like you do in a maturity model. You just have this ultimate high end of the capability. Is that something that's important to you? How difficult is it to get there? So this curvy keyboard is really killing me. All right, so we're going to go with 20 of those, and let's just see what we get. So what is the ideal? What are a set of ideals that you might want to achieve while you're making a technology purchase decision in a physical store? The confidence thing, that's almost an emotional job, right? You want to know the technology is compatible with your existing devices. So these are, for you purists out there are other ways to do this, and this is one of them. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. So you can ask any questions you want. You could ask 10 questions for each of these if you wanted to. It doesn't just have to be importance and satisfaction or importance and difficulty. Experiment and then let us all know. And screening questions I don't get into. Obviously, there are elements of the survey that are not related to these, like screening questions. So given the end user and the job, it does a decent job of stubbing out a basic screening section. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to add to it, but it's nice to have a head start sometimes. So that's kind of it. What did I promise we were going to come back and look at? I'm not sure there's anything else, but that's kind of my workflow. I just build this catalog out, and you can see it all here. I have a template. I shared it in one of my other videos. I believe there's a link to the template. Maybe it's in a blog post as well. If not, I'll try to remember to include it here. But this template's available for you all to use, and all you got to do is fill in the blanks. And it's just a nice way to separate everything out and make sure you've got everything. And it supports the construction of your survey. It's not a research plan or an analysis plan. It doesn't really get to the key, research questions that you're trying to answer. That you need to do separately before you even start this, because that'll drive, maybe the context and the scope of this a little bit. But that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If not, let me know. There'll be comments. This will be in my Substack. You'll see it on YouTube as well. So you can make sure you subscribe to my Substack and to my YouTube and hit the like button, please. That'll help me out. Otherwise, have a great weekend.